OMG. OMG. She's running again. She's running. We thought we were done with her. We thought we'd never see her again. No, she's running for office again. I'm not talking about Kamala Harris. It's even worse. Kamala Harris knows when she's cooked. Kamala Harris knows that her days are numbered. She's done. Once you lose the presidency, there's really no place else to go but back home and, I don't know, maybe get a fake news job. But it's Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker Emeritus or Emeritus or whatever they call her. Nancy Pelosi has filed paperwork to run for office again in 2026. Now, I know what you're thinking. Is Nancy Pelosi still alive? She is, actually. As a matter of fact, shocked me too. Nancy Pelosi has filed her paperwork to run for her congressional seat again in San Francisco in 2026. That's 2 years from now. Now, you may be wondering to yourself, Mark Kaye, how old is Nancy Pelosi currently? That's a great question. Currently, Nancy Pelosi is 84 years old, which means when she runs again, she will be, carry the one, 86 years old. And if she survives long enough to finish that term, she'll be 88, at which point I imagine she'll just run again because, have you seen her husband, Paul? Would you want to sit at home with that guy? And now she's not going to get her. You know what? She's really annoyed because she's not going to get that cush Italian ambassadorship that she wanted. She wanted Joe Biden to make her the Italian ambassador, but that's not going to happen. Not now that she stabbed him in the back and threw him out of office. This was Nancy Pelosi's grand plan. She was going to get to live in that big, beautiful oceanfront villa in Italy and dine on Italian food and chug wine or limoncello or sambuca or whatever it is she wanted. She'll drink it all. And just kick it on the Italian estate for the rest of her life. But now that Joe Biden hates her and they're mortal enemies, she's not going to get that ambassadorship. Donald Trump's not going to give it to her. Although I kind of wish that he would. I kind of wish that he would let her, move to Europe for the rest of her life. I think it would make everybody a lot happier. But so now she's filed and she's just going to run again and she's going to come back to Washington, D.C. for at least 2 more years. Now, keep in mind, Nancy Pelosi, she's not the spring chicken she used to be. And even though she's accused Joe Biden of being inept and unable to be president, she herself has had some problems speaking lately.
And, while he may be saying we're enablers, we see Joe Biden up close. We know how attuned he is to the issues, how informed he is. And I debate with him about legislation, not debate, but discuss it with him. He's right there. So in any case, it was a bad night. Let's not sugarcoat that. It was a bad night. It was a great presidency.
It was a bad night. It was a great breaking news. President Donald Trump, just moments before we went live today, announced that he is suing the media for billions of dollars. He says the media is biased against him, and so he is suing the media. He's suing the New York Times. He's suing CBS. He's suing other media outlets because he said they worked in tandem, in conjunction. They used their power. They used everything that they had against him. And in doing so, he won the election, but it doesn't matter. He still said it was a coordinated attack, and he believes that he's worth due compensation to the amount of $10 billion. The Guardian reports president-elect intensifies long-standing media hostility by filing lawsuits against New York Times, CBS, and others. With only 2 months left until Donald Trump returns to the White House, the president-elect and convicted felon, they like to throw in there, has been waging lawfare by a flurry of lawsuits against him. The lawsuits come amid growing fears of what a second Trump term would mean for press freedom as Trump intensifies his long-standing hostility. On Thursday, Columbia Journalism Review revealed that just days before the presidential election, Trump's lawyer, Edward Andrew Pultzik, issued a letter to the New York Times and Penguin Random House that demanded $10 billion in damages over articles critical of Trump. The letter joins a series of lawsuits against other media companies that Trump has accused of politically targeting him. Now, you may remember he accused CBS of editing, and they actually did it, so it's not not an accusation that was anywhere out of this world, but they actually accused CBS and brought a case against them because of the 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. And what they did was they took an answer of Kamala's, which was horrible. They were all pretty much horrible.
And,
and what he did was he sued them because they took that answer that was horrible and they added an answer that was less horrible. and they made it seem like she was smarter than she actually was, but she wasn't, and nor is she. So those multiple lawsuits that Donald Trump is bringing against the media are his continued reaction to media censorship and the media working in tandem for the Democrat Party, for being the mouthpiece of the Democrat Party. And that's something that they are going to continue to do. And they're going to work harder. That's the thing. They haven't even stopped. They're going to work even harder in this administration to fight back against Donald Trump and use whatever power they have left to try to pretend like Donald Trump is bad and they're good. We'll get to all that here. And I have a little bit more on that. And Jen Psaki was out talking to. We're going to get to that in just a minute. But I do want to start with something kind of exciting. Sylvester Stallone was at an event yesterday at Mar-a-Lago. President Trump hosted a big gala at Mar-a-Lago. All the celebrities were there. It was very exciting. It was for the America First, group. The America First something or other, and they had everybody. Elon was there, and Vivek was there, and President Trump made an appearance, and Sylvester Stallone was there. And Sylvester Stallone was tasked with the introduction of President Donald Trump, and he did a pretty good job. Listen to how Sylvester Stallone introduced Donald Trump yesterday at Mar-a-Lago.
When George Washington defended his country, he had no idea that he was going to change the world. Because without him, you can imagine what the world would look like. Guess what? We got the second George Washington. Congratulations.
By the America First Policy Institute is what it was. And that was Sylvester Stallone saying, look at that. We got the second George Washington right here. Second George Washington.
We got the second George Washington.
Yeah, and that is, it's an interesting comparison. I've heard Donald Trump is like Abraham Lincoln. I've heard, in fact, Donald Trump has said he's the most consequential president since Lincoln. I've seen comparisons to Ronald Reagan. But if you think about it, if you think about what Donald Trump is doing, what he's had to overcome, and what he's doing right this moment, it does seem like calling him the second George Washington would be pretty apropos. Also, not at all shocking that Sylvester Stallone would call him the second George Washington, because that guy loves a sequel. That guy's produced more sequels than anything else. He's the second George Washington, and coming soon, the third George Washington, and George Washington 5, the First Blood Part 9, all those kinds of things.
We got the second George Washington.
Yeah, but Donald Trump and George Washington have done very similar things. George Washington was trying to free the Americans, the 13 original colonies. He was trying to free them from tyrannical rule, where people's rights were disrupted, where they were ignored, where they were trampled on, where they were taxed, ridiculously high. Where every time they spoke up against their government, they were slashed down. They were punished. You couldn't say anything against the crown without getting punished by any of the soldiers that were wandering around in the 13 original colonies. That was all part of the tyrannical rule of King George III, and that's why the American Revolution happened. And Donald Trump, a lot of people have claimed that this past election, was the second American Revolution. And if that's the case, then clearly Donald Trump is the second George Washington, the new father of our country, because we kind of have a new government. I mean, if you think about it, we kind of have a new government. What Donald Trump was able to do and what George Washington did. George Washington came in and said, look, we're building a government from scratch. We're building a constitution. We're going to get people in office. We're going to try to create a variation of what we had before, and we're going to be self-governing, and we're going to make sure that the people and their rights come first. The people and we're going to work together, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And that was what George Washington was tasked with creating. And now Donald Trump, 250 some odd years later, is tasked with rebuilding that same thing. We had a government that was not of the people. And you can just go back to 2020. There's still some questions about that. Not for the people. It was for the elites, and it was for all of the ruling class and all of the elected officials. And it was not of the people, by the people, or for the people. It was not of, by, or for the people. And now Donald Trump saying we're gonna have a government that is all those things. We are going to have the greatest government you've ever seen. We're going to cut it down to size. And he really is, in a way, creating kind of this new country here in the United States of America. And it's actually, look, Sylvester Stallone, he's no dodo head. I know he sounds like it sometimes, but he wrote and produced and distributed Rocky on his own. He's a smart guy. He's built a business. He's built a fortune, and he's become a one-man media empire, kind of. And that is all in part because he, like I said, he's not a dodo head.
We got the second George Washington.
Yeah, and he's he can maybe slur his words a little bit, but otherwise he's right on the money. And Donald Trump himself gave a speech yesterday at Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump was there, and he was talking. And one of the things he did was he talked about his new roommate, Elon Musk, because apparently the reports are Elon Musk is at Mar-a-Lago and likes it so much he's not going anywhere. Elon Musk, he moved to Texas. He moved Tesla to Texas, moving X to Texas, all the things. But now he's in Miami. He's in West Palm Beach. He's not moving. He's like, I'm chilling at Mar-a-Lago. I'm hanging out with the transition team. There's parties here every single night. He's a big celebrity, and he gets to have the right ear of the president and whisper into his ear and say, I think this, I think that, I think that, I think this. And there have been reports that Elon Musk has been seen at Mar-a-Lago for weeks now. Kaye Trump even started calling him Uncle Elon. Said that Elon Musk has received uncle status or achieved uncle status. And Donald Trump made a joke about that yesterday.
We have a man who has a seriously high IQ. I'm a person that believes in high IQs, and his is about as high as they get. He launched a rocket 3 weeks ago, and then he went to Pennsylvania to campaign because he considered this more important than launching rockets that cost billions of dollars. Elon Musk. Elon. What a job. What a job he does. And he happens to be a really good guy. He likes this place. I can't get him out of here. He just likes this place. And you know what? I like having him here, too. He's good. He's done a fantastic job. Really an incredible mind, and he's an unbelievable entrepreneur, sort of everything. I'm asking him, what do you do best? And we were not able to figure it out, but it's a lot of things.
We were. What do you do best? I don't know. Yeah, I can't figure it out either. It's so many good things that Elon Musk is doing, not just for President Trump, but for our country. And we're excited all about that. And Vivek Ramaswamy, his co-captain in DOGE, in the Department of Government Efficiency, Vivek Ramaswamy was also there, and he also had some nice things to say about Elon Musk.
Last Tuesday was not the destination, it was the start line for the revival of this country. The cabinet picks this week, you know what? Donald Trump wasn't afraid in putting Tom Homan and Kristi Noem in charge of the mass deportations of millions of illegals for this country. But I also want to thank him for making sure that Elon Musk and I are in a position to start the mass deportations of millions of unelected federal bureaucrats out of the D.C. bureaucracy. That, too, is how we're going to save this country. And I don't know if you've got to know Elon yet, but he doesn't bring a chisel. He brings a chainsaw, and we're going to be taking it to that bureaucracy. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and he's right about that. He's like, Elon Musk, he doesn't take a chisel. He takes a chainsaw. When he came to X, he got rid of 2/3 of the employees there and cut out a whole bunch of waste. And now you see how that business, all of his businesses run exactly the same way. All of his businesses run efficiently. And Elon Musk makes it a point to make sure that all of his businesses are not wasting money, and that they are not overburdened, and that they are not bolstered or padded with unnecessary people doing redundant jobs. And the government is all of those things. So Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have now been put in charge of stripping it out. And while Donald Trump was at this event, he made a surprise announcement. The cabinet is only half full. It seems like we've been getting pick after pick after pick after pick, and we'll get into some of those because there was another controversial one yesterday. But Donald Trump got up and he made an impromptu cabinet announcement yesterday at this event.
We have a big announcement, and I won't tell you the name of his the exact name. I think he's an incredible person. He's got an unbelievably wonderful wife named Catherine. So I won't tell you his name. Might be something like Burgum. He's from North Dakota. He's going to be announced tomorrow for a very big position. So everybody's waiting. There he is. Hi, Doug. He's going to be announced tomorrow, and we have somebody else that's probably coming up with him to be announced, who's a big one. And we're going to do things with energy and with land, interior, that is going to be incredible. And so I look forward to doing the formal announcement, although this is a pretty big announcement right now. Actually, he's going to head the Department of Interior, and he's going to be fantastic. Good, Doug. Congratulations, Catherine. But we'll make the formal announcement tomorrow.
All right, so that was last night, which means the formal announcement's coming sometime today that Doug Burgum will be the Secretary of the Interior and leading the Interior Department, which means, if you're keeping track, and if you're not, we have the handy-dandy Washington Post cabinet tracker here. If you look at this list, you'll see that Doug Burgum, the governor of North Dakota, is the Interior Secretary, and Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, is the Homeland Security Secretary. So both Dakotas are governorless. Both Dakotas are in need of new governors. If you live in the Dakotas, either of them, then congratulations. Both your governors have been very impressive people, and they've worked really well to impress Donald Trump, and they have the skills it takes to pay the bills. But you're going to be governorless in both of the Dakotas, which is interesting. I don't know that that's ever happened before. We've been here in Florida. We have all of our top tier individuals are being purged. We're losing a lot of candidates that were actually supposed to replace Ron DeSantis as governor because he's term limited out in about 2 years. But that's a story. That's a story for another time. But if you look at this cabinet once again, a lot of positions have been filled. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 positions have been filled when it comes to the cabinet positions that require Senate confirmation. However, there's still 8 positions left. Agriculture, commerce, treasury, labor, housing and urban development, transportation, energy, education. Those are all still open. So really, half of the cabinet has been filled, and there are way more spots still to come, way more announcements to be made. Now, yesterday, you may know that there was a big announcement. President Donald Trump announced that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would be the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. This is something that we all expected. Yet the way the media reacted, you can't believe these people reacted like this came somewhere right out of left field. Like they didn't see RFK Jr. on the campaign trail with Donald Trump. They didn't see RFK Jr. standing on stage with President Trump endorsing him while fireworks were shooting off in the back. They didn't see any of that. It was an interesting thing. Basically, what happened is RFK Jr. And Donald Trump made this arrangement months ago. We all knew that he was going to be in charge of Health and Human Services. But man, the media reacted they reacted in their typical ridiculous fashion, starting with CNN's Jake Tapper, who had this to say.
Well, America, I hope you like measles.
I mean, come on. Oh, that's a calm reaction. That's a well planned out reaction by a professional journalist.
Well, America, I hope you like measles.
Well, America, I hope you like measles is how CNN is reporting on the pick of RFK Jr. to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will now be in charge of the FDA, the USDA, the NIH, all these other lettered organizations, the CDC. And they believe, I guess what happens is the common thread running through the media, or the belief that I think I've heard over and over, is that RFK is going to get rid of vaccines, which would be probably the reason why Jake Tapper said,
well, America, I hope you like measles.
I wonder if Jake Tapper is one of the ones on the chopping block. I wonder if Jake probably not, but I wonder, but this is why comments like this, reactions like this is why CNN is slashing so many people and downsizing like hundreds of jobs.
Well, America, I hope you like measles.
I mean, you can't just wander in there with that kind of a statement. What are you doing? What are you doing? Sanjay Gupta was, Dr. Sanjay Gupta had some other insight from inside some of the agencies that RFK Jr. will now be in charge of.
To steer clear of politics, but this really isn't about politics, because this is somebody who has been, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has been pushing quackery, who has been pushing lies, who has been pushing conspiracy theories. You've been talking to experts in the health community, the medical community, preparing for him, RFK Jr., to be given some sort of role in health. What have they said to you?
Well, it's not often that the entire medical and public health community is going to be in lockstep on something, but they're pretty close on this in terms of their significant concerns, horror even. Somebody said to me today, I can't think of any single individual who'd be more damaging to public health than RFK.
Horror. Horror, he said. They're reacting with horror. I can't imagine any individual who'd be more detrimental to public health than RFK. That's how they're that's how they're reacting to RFK because they believe he's going to I don't know what they think he's going to do, but I guess the big thing is the vaccines. A lot of people have called him a vaccine denier. A lot of people have called him anti-vax. A lot of people have called him a conspiracy theorist. He appeared in front of Congress at one point and he said something which I think is very poignant for this moment.
I'm not anti-vaccine, but I think we need to be honest and we need to have good science. I spent 30 years trying to get mercury out of the fish in this country and nobody ever called me anti-fish.
Yeah, I was never anti-fish because I wanted mercury out of the fish. I wasn't anti-fish. I was pro not having mercury in fish. Now I just want to take a look at the vaccines in this country, make sure that they're safe, that kind of thing. But it doesn't matter. The media is apoplectic. The medical community is going crazy. Oh, the stock exchange. The stock exchange is flipping out. Look at this. This is the stock market today. The indexes drop. Donald Trump's RFK Jr. pick hits the global pharmaceutical market. Look at the Dow went down, the S&P 500 went down, the NASDAQ composite went down. Why is that? Well, because they believe that RFK Jr. is going to have a detrimental effect on, I guess, a lot of their drug products. This is, what is this? It looks like this is GSK. I'm not sure what this is. But if you look at all of these, here we go. Oh, wait, let me go back here. This is, let's start here. Moderna. This is Moderna. Moderna down 39.7%. This was yesterday, right after the announcement. The announcement came right around here, about 3 o'clock. And then boom, right before the stock market closed, the Moderna stock plummeted. This is Pfizer. Pfizer, same thing. The announcement came right around here is where the announcement came. And then boom, stock just plummeted. And this is GSK, which I believe is, I forget what that is, but that's another one. And they just plummeted again. Boom. And then today, this is how the stock market opened. Because a lot of people believe that RFK Jr. is going to do what Donald Trump tasked him to do, and that is make America healthy again. And maybe that's going to impact the pharmaceutical market. Maybe some of their products like vaccines are not going to be as popular anymore. Maybe they're going to work to reduce the costs of some of these medications, which is going to bring down their profitability, because when you reduce costs, oftentimes you're not going to make as much money. And so these are all of the things now that are concerning the stock market and the Democrats. And really, this is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. This is why the Democrats are so furious with RFK Jr. They don't care about what he says. They care about what they care about the effect of what he says on their bottom line. I mean, Nancy Pelosi knows. She's invested in all of these stock markets. You can look at any of the Republicans and Democrats in elected positions who've padded their bank accounts with these amazing stock picks that just seem to come out of nowhere. They all know this is their bread and butter. I mean, think about how many vaccines were sold over the last 4 years. Think about how much money that is. Think about how much stockholders would have made. And now when the threat is there to limit the number of vaccines that the government will be providing or that other people will be required to get, when other pharmaceutical drugs maybe are going to be less expensive because of the actions of one man, that's gonna drop the bottom line. And all of a sudden, I imagine there's a lot of, if we check the quiver quantitative, I imagine there's a lot of representatives in Congress who dumped their stocks yesterday and maybe even got a word about what was going to happen early. We'll have to cross-reference that and see what's happening. But again, the stock market, that's one of the big reasons why the Democrats hate RFK Jr. because they know that he is going to have a negative effect on the money that they have invested in their friends' companies. That's why the RFK pick, that's one of the reasons why the RFK pick was so controversial. I will say this, there was the reaction across the media was of all the reaction, and the Matt Gaetz pick. When Matt Gaetz was chosen as Attorney General, we thought that pick was crazy. I mean, I thought it was great, but we thought the media reaction to that was crazy. The media reaction to RFK, I think, almost superseded that. When you look at some of the people here, I have here, this is Scott Jennings on CNN talking to, I forget who the other guy is, but I think he's a Republican too. Listen to this back and forth about RFK Jr. becoming the Secretary of Health and Human Services?
If we're being intellectually honest, there's really no good reason why Bobby Kennedy, RFK Jr., should be HHS Secretary.
Okay, let me stop right there. This guy says, if we're being intellectually honest, which is a dig. He's basically saying that Donald Trump is not an intellectual. Donald Trump is not smart. When you say, if we're being intellectually honest, we need to say that RFK Jr. is not a good pick, which means he's saying that Donald Trump is a moron.
If we're being intellectually honest, there's really no good reason why Bobby Kennedy, RFK Jr., should be HHS Secretary. An advisor, a confidant, somebody who talks to the president and advises, but there's no managerial experience in his resume. There's nothing that says he is qualified to do this job that is in charge of the health of all of us, all these different lanes. If he has views and has insights around food sources, around vaccines, then those should be given in advisory roles.
Why?
Well, because...
Well, what were the qualifications of the previous ones?
Well, I think it's important to always remember that you put yourself... Say that again?
What were the management qualifications? I mean, Xavier Becerra...
I'm not talking about the previous. I'm looking forward.
No, but you're calling into question whether he could actually do this job. And I think it's...
Absolutely. I think America is now, and I think
it's important to discuss it, because Xavier Becerra was just a lawyer and a politician with no management experience.
So does two wrongs make a right?
Sylvia Burwell was a Walmart lobbyist. Donna Shalala was a university person. Look,
RFK Jr. is a nut.
Oh, there it is. There it is. It has absolutely nothing to do with his qualifications. In 20 seconds there, he started saying, look, if we're being intellectually honest, he doesn't have the managerial experience to run the Department of Health and Human Services. And then Scott Jennings is like, neither did Javier Becerra, neither did Donna Shalala, neither did any of the others. But they were tasked with it. Why didn't you complain then? And that's when it always comes back down to name calling, doesn't it? It's like, look, if we're being intellectually honest, he's a nut.
Okay, so that's different than what you just said. You just said he doesn't possess the requisite managerial experience, but then we get to the real issue here, which is you want to insult the man, which is your right to do because you opposed him in the election. But you, Doctor, are raising the issues that he has been raising, and I think they're appropriate questions to raise. I don't know whether he can be confirmed or not. The vaccine stuff at the table is obviously going to be the flashpoint of this hearing. But I'll tell you one thing. This whole issue of the CDC and these public health agencies, look, public trust in the health regime in this country is as low as it's ever been.
But why,
It's because of COVID.
Right.
Because of school closures. Because of mask mandates. Because this country was... But let me just finish. Because this country was drugged through a bunch of condescending and heavy-handed mandates that all turned out to be garbage, and that's why it's low, and the questions are valid.
And RFK is the answer to all of that.
Yeah, but RFK helped promote the assault on the CDC that lowered the disinformation that led to more than a million deaths, Scott. More than 1 million deaths in the United States, higher than any other industrialized nation per capita. That's the result of failed policies, the demonization of the conspiracy theories.
Whose policies?
All right, under the Trump administration.
John, whose policies were they? Come on, let's be honest. That's why Scott Jennings, by the way, is on the short list we hear for press secretary. That's still something that we have not yet unearthed. We still don't know who is going to be the press secretary of the United States of America. We don't know who's going to be delivering those press conferences every single day that we look forward to watching. It's going to be somebody. Could be Scott Jennings. Could be Caroline Leavitt. We don't know. Could still be Megyn Kelly. She said no comment when she was asked, but that's something we're waiting for. But that's how the media reacts. They say, well, America, I hope you like measles, or RFK Jr.'s a nut. He's different. He's anti-establishment. That's what they don't like, because anyone who's anti-establishment is you can tell who the establishment is. You know what they always say, establishment politicians. The establishment politicians are the ones that freak out when somebody anti-establishment is introduced into the system. And it appears that most people are anti-establishment because of the reaction to the RFK Jr. pick. There was another instance on MSNBC where they were talking about Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth, of course, from Fox News. And Pete Hegseth is the selection for Secretary of Defense by Donald Trump in his second administration. And I don't know who these two people are because they work for MSNBC. That's like the least popular network. So I can imagine that most people don't know who these people are. But they were talking about Pete Hegseth. And speaking of, because again, just like that guy on CNN said, look, RFK Jr.'s a nut It always comes down to name calling with these people. Listen to what they said about Pete Hegseth.
Add the Secretary of Defense nominee, Peter Hegseth, the Fox News commentator as well, because this is someone who weekend host. Important distinction.
By the way, what kind of a stupid dig is that? She says it's a Fox News host, and the other guy goes weekend host. Like that, like he's grasping at everything. He's trying to demoralize Pete Hegseth by saying, no, he's a weekend host. Was that worse? Is being a weekend host not as good as being a daily host? I was a weekend host on Newsmax for years. I thought it was great. Weekend host is great because guess what? You're still on the TV station and you don't have to work as hard. But Pete Hegseth, he's less of an elite player in the media because not only did he work for Fox News, but he worked for Fox News on the weekend. And that's the only thing that makes you less qualified than working for Fox News is working for Fox News 2 days instead of 5 in their minds. I digress. Let me start that one from the beginning.
Add the Secretary of Defense nominee, Peter Hegseth, the Fox News commentator as well, because this is someone who weekend host. Important distinction. This is someone who, is known to be a white supremacist, known to be an extremist, whose book is basically about his opposition to the advancement of black officers to the top brass.
He's a known white supremacist. He's a known extremist. And on top of all that, he's just a weekend host. Pete Hegseth. How can we put this guy in charge of the military? First of all, he's an extremist. Why is he an extremist? Well, because he works for Donald Trump. Why is he a racist? Well, because he feels that black officers should not be elevated to the highest levels of the military. That's a lie, by the way. I know, shocking lies on MSNBC. Pete Hegseth's whole platform is diversity, equity, inclusion is bad, especially in the military. If any department in our government, if any department anywhere, if any institution ever created on God's green earth should be a meritocracy, it should be the military. Because you want the most skilled, the most professional, you want the most lethal, you want the most focused, you want the most engaged, you want the best, like just all around best people in charge of the largest fighting force in the entire world. This is the first line of defense nationally and domestically. The U.S. military, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Space Force, the Coast Guard, the National, all of them. You want somebody who's at the top of the list. You want the generals and the lieutenant colonels and you want every single person in the place they're supposed to be because they know what they're doing. They're skilled, they're quick, they're knowledgeable, they're experienced, not because they're black, they're gay, they're transgender, they have different pronouns, they're a pregnant woman. None of that should matter. Pete Hegseth never said, don't elevate black soldiers. He said, don't elevate people simply because they're black soldiers. And now MSNBC is calling him a white supremacist, racist, extremist, and worst of all, lowly weekend host. That's an important distinction.
Add the Secretary of Defense nominee, Peter Hegseth, the Fox News commentator as well, because this is someone who weekend host. Important distinction.
No, it's not an important distinction at all. None of that is important. What's important? Here's what's important. I'll tell you exactly what's important. What's important is that Donald Trump is picking people not based on how long they've been in Washington, D.C., not based on how long they've slogged away in some bureaucracy or what positions of power or what deputyships they've held before. Donald Trump is going in there and saying, who is somebody who is going to root out? Because again, we've never been in this position before. Remember, this is brand new. Just like George Washington, after he won the Revolutionary War, had to start from scratch by building a government, Donald Trump's doing the same thing.
We got the second George Washington.
And what's happening is the second George Washington is going, okay, forget everything. We're starting over, right? Here's what we got. Ready? I'm going to do a visual for those of you that are watching. This is, here we go. Ready? This is Biden's government. Okay, here we go. Look, this is Biden's government. Donald Trump's looking at this going, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're starting over. Okay? We don't have any. I just made a big mess. We're starting over. We're starting from scratch. Get me a new sheet of paper. I don't want any of the old names. I don't want any of the old bureaucrats. We're starting fresh. Who do we know that could run the military? Who do we know that is against DE&I? Who do we know that has a plan for elevating individuals to positions of power in the military, in the fighting force, that is merit-based and has nothing to do with diversity, equity, or inclusion? Who do we know that has a military record and a pedigree? Who do we know that has written books about how our warriors are being, basically disrespected and attacked by their own government? Who do we know? Do we know anyone like that? Yeah, like that Fox News weekend host. Great. Put him down. Bring him in for an interview. Look, these are not just a bunch of bros sitting around in Mar-a-Lago. I know a lot of people think it is. They think it's like Don Jr. and J.D. Vance and, a couple other people and Donald Trump and Barron. Who knows? They think they're all just sitting around this table and they're like, all right, cool. Look, we got to find a place for Pete because Pete's a good guy and we play golf all the time. Or, hey, RFK, he's a badass. He killed that bear and he's a falconer. And we need him. They're not just doing that. They're interviewing, they're vetting, they're looking at these people's records, and they're trying to figure out who is going to be the best person to make sure that our government is run efficiently and that our citizens are protected and that our military is strong and lethal and deadly and prepared to fight and win wars anywhere in the world. And it's in their minds, it's Pete Hegseth. And that's not something they pulled out of their butts. That's something they came to the conclusion of after extensive research and study. The other thing is this whole concept of loyalty. People like, Donald Trump just wants a yes man. Donald Trump just wants somebody who's going to go in there and say yes. Donald Trump's going to be in charge of the military. I've actually heard somebody, I forget who it was, said, Donald Trump's literally going to be in charge of the military, and all he's going to do is tell Pete Hegseth what to do. Fun fact, that's the role of the President of the United States, Commander-in-Chief. Pete Hegseth is Secretary of Defense. He is not in charge of the military. His job is to take Donald Trump's orders and follow them through. His job is to take orders from the president and make sure that the rest of the military operation is following those orders. So yes, Donald Trump will be in charge of the military. That's what happened. Donald Trump will be looking for people that say, yes, I will do as you've ordered. Now, he'll also give his opinions. He'll also give his insight. There will be debate, as there always is in a Donald Trump or in any White House, I hope. But Donald Trump, do not be shocked. The commander-in-chief of the American military is not the Secretary of Defense. It's not the Joint Chief, the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It is the President of the United States of America. So don't get your panties all in a wad that Pete Hegseth is going to be in charge of the nuclear codes. He's not. There's other people in charge of the nuclear codes. That was just one of the weird things. Also, what's her name? The old lady, Andrea Mitchell. She was interviewing Bill Hagerty from Tennessee, who I didn't really know. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know a lot about Bill Hagerty till recently. Now I know a lot about Bill Hagerty, and I think he's a great guy. Bill Hagerty is amazing. Bill Hagerty from Tennessee was being interviewed by Marsha Blackburn, and she asked him about not just Pete Hegseth, and he answered in a similar way, not just RFK Jr., but about Matt Gaetz. And I want to play for you what Bill Hagerty said about to Andrea Mitchell about Matt Gaetz, because I think it is it's one of the most perfect answers I've ever heard. And again, this is from a guy who went through the process. He was an ambassador, and he knows what it takes to become any kind of appointed official, what it takes to be confirmed by the Senate. And he gave a great answer. Before we get to that, though, I did want to share with you an opportunity for you to really grow financially in our next administration. And that is by taking whatever assets you currently have, an IRA, any kind of investments, that kind of thing, and investigating the opportunities of gold and silver and platinum, specifically with Colonial Metals Group, who is a new sponsor of Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. And as you can see, this is Paul Stone. He's the CEO of Colonial Metals Group, and he has this great video which you can watch on the website freegoldguide.com/K, K-A-Y-E, freegoldguide.com/K-A-Y-E. And, he talked a lot about the coming storm and how inflation was going to be a problem. And there's really only one inflation-proof investment, and that is precious metals like gold, like silver, like platinum. And what they've done at Colonial Metals Group is they've taken gold and silver and platinum and they've created investments. So if you have a traditional IRA with stocks and bonds, those things fluctuate. You saw what happened. I mean, I showed you what happened with the stock market. Just announcing RFK and poof, everybody's stock portfolio just went down. That doesn't happen with gold. When they announced the Secretary of the Treasury, gold is not going to lose value. Silver is not going to become less valuable. Probably it's going to become more. So you can protect and grow your retirement savings with a gold IRA. And Colonial Gold, there's a lot of gold companies out there. Colonial Metals Group is fantastic, and Paul Stone is a great guy. We're going to try to get him on the show, actually, because he also knows a lot about the economy. But this free gold guide, again, it's free. You can go get it. Go to freegoldguide.com/K, K-A-Y-E. And there's a link, of course, as always, in the description of this video on YouTube and on Rumble, so you can go check that out for yourself. freegoldguide.com/K. If you'd like to investigate that. Okay, so Matt Gaetz, we thought Matt Gaetz was the straw that would break the proverbial camel's back, and the camel's back would be the Democrats in the Senate. We thought that the rhinos in the Senate would just have their heads explode over Matt Gaetz, and they did. But this RFK Jr. pick, I don't know, Donald Trump timed it perfectly. And I think and I've heard this on a couple places, I think what the transition team is doing is they're distributing these picks in a way that they seem less extreme than they originally did. The Pete Hegseth pick was the first interesting pick. It was the first pick. Everyone was like, Pete Hegseth, wait, the guy from Fox News? That's going to be the Secretary of Defense? And it rankled some people. It ruffled some feathers. The media had a heyday with it. But then all of a sudden, bam, here comes Attorney General Matt Gaetz. Whoa. All of a sudden. You know what that was like? You know what Matt Gaetz, when Donald Trump dropped the Matt Gaetz announcement, that Matt Gaetz was going to be the next Attorney General of the United States, it was a lot like Mike Tyson slapping Jake Paul at the weigh-in. I don't know if you saw that. I mean, that fight is tonight, I think, on Netflix. And right before they were doing the weigh-in, and Jake Paul rolls up there, and Mike Tyson just pimp slaps him. That was Donald Trump dropping the Matt Gaetz Attorney General pick. That was Donald Trump was Mike Tyson, and the deep state and the liberal media and the Democrats and the rhinos were Jake Paul. That's also going to be Matt Gaetz on his first day when he walks into the Department of Justice. Matt Gaetz is going to be Mike Tyson rolling into the DOJ all like, yeah, I love that. It's clearly one of my new. That's going to be one of my new favorite clips for sure. But anyway, so this DOJ, and then all of a sudden, everyone was like still freaking out about Matt Gaetz, and they roll out RFK Jr. And RFK Jr., it seems, became even more of a controversial pick than any of the ones before. So I'm excited to see I'll be honest with you, I'm excited to see what happens next. But anyway, Bill Hagerty was talking to Andrea Mitchell, and here's what Andrea Mitchell asked about whether or not Bill Hagerty would be supporting the role of Matt Gaetz in the next administration as Attorney General.
What is your reaction to Matt Gaetz as Attorney General? Right now, would you support him?
Listen, Andrea, it's amazing to me that people are reacting the way they are, what you just showed, because there has been no one better at channeling the American public's frustration with the weaponization of the Department of Justice than Matt Gaetz. You can understand the president's frustration with the DOJ. During his campaign, during his first campaign, they used a fake Clinton dossier to spy on him. Look at what happened in the first Trump administration. This whole fake Russiagate hoax, the DOJ investigated him for years doing that. In 2020, the DOJ went to big tech and had them censor Hunter Biden's laptop to throw the election toward Joe Biden. And if you think about what just happened in 2024, the DOJ, their colleagues around the country, they brought 5 different cases to try President Biden's top opponent, President Trump. I can understand his frustration in wanting to put an agent of change in place. I'm not surprised at all.
I'm not surprised at all, and neither should you be. I mean, think about it. If the media really stopped and they thought the way Bill Hagerty from Tennessee clearly has, they should be shocked if anyone other than Matt Gaetz was Attorney General. If Donald Trump just picked, because you know what he did yesterday is he made a couple of other picks, and we're going to go through all of those. But if he just picked some lawyer or some legal analyst or somebody that is more establishment, if he didn't pick the firebrand who single-handedly led the charge to get his own Republican Speaker of the House ejected and bring in Mike Johnson, if he hadn't picked that guy, if he'd picked just some normal person, that to me would have been shocking. Everybody would have been going, what's Donald Trump doing? I thought he wanted a clean house. What's Donald Trump doing? I thought he wanted to root out the deep state. What is President Donald Trump doing? I thought he wanted to de-weaponize the government. He needs somebody like, I don't know, Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz, according to Bill Hagerty, after the first impeachment, the second impeachment, the Mueller investigation, after Jack Smith, after the raid on Mar-a-Lago by the FBI and them rifling through Melania's panty drawer like a bunch of pervs, after all of that, after the different indictments, what was it? Oh my God, 91 different indictments all across the country. After all of this, wouldn't you think that Matt Gaetz would be the person that Donald Trump would pick? I mean, if you have an infestation, you don't go to, if you've got a rat problem, you don't go to Home Depot and buy some rat traps. You call an exterminator and you get them to come in here and you say, we have an issue. You do whatever you want. And they're going to start ripping out walls and they're going to start pumping smoke through your house and they're going to poison. And sometimes, you know what they're going to do? They're going to cover your house with a big circus tent and they're going to tell you to get out. They're going to be like, look, you don't want to be anywhere near here. They're going to cover your house with a circus tent. They're going to pump poison into that mug, and they're going to kill everything inside. That's how you get rid of an infestation. Matt Gaetz is the perfect pick. And Bill Hagerty agrees. And so does Mike Tyson. That's good. But then she went on. This interview, by the way, was 7 minutes long. I was going to play the whole gosh darn thing. It was so good. But she went on and she's like, but are you going to support him? I mean, what happens?
J.D. Vance, the vice president-elect, and Matt Gaetz have both been working the phones to get a read on what his chances are of getting confirmed. Have you received a call?
I have not received a call because I think they know there's no problem with me. I want to see President Trump's cabinet appointed quickly. Look, I went through the process of being jammed up by the Democrats when I went through confirmation. I turned my paperwork in on the 21st of January, 2017. I didn't get through the process until late July. An important post. We couldn't fill it because of obstruction. We need to allow President Trump, particularly in this circumstance when the American public has spoken so clearly, we need to allow him to fill his cabinet and get to work, bringing our departments of justice and other departments back in line to stop the weaponization and take control from the bureaucracy and bring it back to the people.
This is a fantastic clip again, and this is a warning sign. And it's really an interesting situation we find ourselves in because everything now kind of rests on the shoulders of Senator John Thune. Senator John Thune. This guy has all of a sudden become the linchpin to the Donald Trump administration. And what happened with the Senate Majority Leaders meeting and the Senate Majority Leaders vote and the decision to choose John Thune over John Cornyn and Rick Scott has really now placed the burden on John Thune. And yeah, and I think I hope it's not a burden for him. I hope he sees what he needs to do and I hope he does it. But what happens now is this is the crucial first test. And Donald Trump is throwing everything out. Donald Trump knows. He goes, I'm going to have one shot at this. Either we get these people confirmed or the Senate recesses. And as soon as the Senate recesses, I'm going to make all of these appointments. So he's throwing everything he wants. He's got a wish list and he's shooting for the moon. RFK Jr., Matt Gaetz, Pete Hegseth, all the rest of them. Tulsi Gabbard even. I even hear people don't like Tulsi Gabbard, and I'm not just talking about John Bolton. That guy doesn't like anything. But there are people out there who, for whatever reason, don't like Tulsi Gabbard, hate Matt Gaetz, and they think that RFK Jr. is a nut job, and we're all gonna get smallpox.
Well, America, I hope you like measles.
Oh, sorry, measles is what Jake. We're all gonna get measles, not smallpox. That's what they think. And so Donald Trump said, great, let's put them all out there and we'll try to get them confirmed. And if not, it's up to John Thune, the new, you wanted the job, dude. You wanted to be speaker. You wanted to be majority leader in the Senate. Well, congratulations, you are. Now it's your job. What are you going to do? And John Thune was on with Brett Baer yesterday, and he was asked the question about recess appointments again. And here's what he said.
So you've said that you would do recess appointments if it came to that. What's the threshold for getting to that point for recess appointments?
Well, what I said is, Brett, and I think this is that all options are on the table, including recess appointments. Hopefully it doesn't get to that, but we'll find out fairly quickly whether the Democrats want to play ball or not. And I think part of it is getting these folks. We'll start having confirmation hearings as soon as the new Senate is sworn in January. President takes the oath of office January 20th. By the time he takes the oath of office, hopefully a lot of those nominees will be through their confirmation hearings and will be ready to act on them on the Senate floor. And then it's a question of how much do the Democrats resist or object or try to block those nominations from going forward. And we're going to grind them out. I mean, we're just going to keep consistently moving, and we'll see what kind of cooperation we get. And then we'll, like I said, we'll make decisions about where do we go from there.
Okay, now the concern, he says, look, if we don't get cooperation from the Democrats, or if they try to obstruct, or if they try to block, which they're very limited. The Democrats are not the problem. Like, he has to say Democrats, but the Democrats aren't the problem. The problem are the Democrat-like Republicans, the rhino Republicans, the moderate Republicans, the people that have already been complaining. Matt Gaetz, what? Susan Collins, Lindsey Graham, Joni Ernst. There's a whole bunch of them. There's so many out there that are complaining about Matt Gaetz. They don't want to have to go in there and confirm Matt Gaetz. Why? Because they don't like the guy. Because Matt Gaetz doesn't care. Matt Gaetz doesn't care about being popular. He cares about being effective. Matt Gaetz doesn't care about being invited to the right parties. He cares about doing what's right by the Constitution. Matt Gaetz doesn't care about being the leader, a committee chairperson. He doesn't care about getting the good table at restaurants. He knows that the government is run based on the Constitution and that elected officials are there to represent the people that vote for them. That's why he keeps getting reelected, even though people in Washington, D.C. despise him. Fun fact, if people in Washington, D.C. despise you, you're actually doing the job that Washington and the rest of our founding fathers expected you to do.
We got the second George Washington.
Yeah, you got the second George Washington, and I guess that makes, I don't know, I guess that makes Matt Gaetz the second Alexander Hamilton or Thomas Jefferson or somebody. I guess Marco Rubio would be the second Thomas Jefferson because he was Secretary of State. You know, it doesn't have, it's not, we don't have time. We don't have time to recap the entire history of the United States of America. But basically what's happening now is the Democrats and a lot of Republicans are going to go against Matt Gaetz's confirmation. And John Thune has just said, if we need to, everything is on the table. This is his test. He's got one shot. If he screws this up, his first thing is going to be getting these appointments passed or recessing so that Donald Trump can make recess appointments. And if he fails to do either of those things or both of those things, then that's going to be a black mark on the rest of his tenure as the majority leader. Also, think about this too. The Republicans in the Senate, they're angry that Donald Trump is putting him in this position because, look, they know. They saw what happened. They saw the election. They saw the votes. They saw the results. They know how red this country is. They know that Donald Trump won an electoral victory that no Republican has won in decades. They know that Donald Trump won the popular vote, which, like, Republicans never do. Donald Trump pummeled Kamala Harris, which, again, isn't that tough. I mean, I'm not saying it was hard what he did. I'm saying that he did it. And Kamala Harris lost.
Yeah, this sucks. We all just speak truth. Why don't we, right?
Yeah. And it's probably a good thing for the rest of us. But that's they know what happened in the United States of America. They know that their constituents love Donald Trump and want his agenda enacted. They know that the border's a problem. The economy stinks. The military is in disarray. They know all this stuff. And they know that Donald Trump's got a plan to fix it. And in order to fix it, Donald Trump needs his lieutenants. He needs his team. And if anybody, this is a precarious position for them because they hate Matt Gaetz, but they know that the public is watching. And if they get up, they know how X works. They know how quickly it works on X. If they get up and they vote against President Donald Trump's cabinet, they're voting against President Donald Trump. If they vote against President Donald Trump's attorney general, they're voting against President Trump. If they vote against President Donald Trump's Health and Human Services Secretary or Donald Trump's Defense Secretary, if they vote against any of those people, they are voting against Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is the most popular Republican in decades. Do you want to be a Republican senator and say, I know Donald Trump is super popular. I know that he's created a massive influx of conservatives and Republicans to the party. And I know that he won electoral and popular vote victories that we haven't seen in decades. but I'm going to vote against him. Even Lindsey Graham, who Lindsey Graham's not going to vote against anything. I know that for a fact. You know how I know that? Because Lindsey Graham, he changes with the wind. He's a sailboat. He's put his big sail up on his what do you call that thing? Mast. And whichever way the wind blows, that's the way Lindsey Graham goes. If the rest of the country says we love Donald Trump, we want Donald Trump is popular, we're going to vote for him, Lindsey Graham is going to be like, MAGA, woo, make America great again. That's what Lindsey Graham's going to do. But do you remember what happened on January 6th when Lindsey Graham went in there and said, I've had it. I am off of the Trump train forever. I'm not worried about Lindsey Graham. There are others, I believe, that think that maybe they know better about who should be working with Donald Trump to enact his America First agenda and get us back to the country that we want to be. Could you imagine anybody going up to George Washington and saying, I know that you think you know the best way to run this country, but I think I know better, so I'm going to vote against some of your picks.
We got the second George Washington.
Yeah, and I think that he's going to get the respect that the first George Washington got as well. It's going to be very, very exciting. Listen, I want to play you this clip from Jen Psaki, and we got to talk. We got to talk a little bit more about this lawsuit too, because it was wild, man. It was crazy. But there's a couple of other things that I wanted to mention first. Oh, first of all, don't forget about our poker tournament. The poker tournament yesterday after I talked, we a whole bunch more tickets are gone. If you want to play poker at our Ho Ho Hold'em charity poker tournament, I would not wait. If it's payday, great. Take your money, make your donation online, and get your seat at our Ho Ho Hold'em charity poker tournament Thursday, December the 5th here in Jacksonville at Best Bet Monument Road. We have just four seats remaining at the VIK table, the very important Katriot table. If you're a Katriot and you love poker and you want to help out Kaye's kids and you want to hang out with me and have a blast live streaming our live poker tournament all over the world, then you can get a VIK ticket. But just know this, there's a mere 4 remaining. There's only 5 full tables left. So if you're looking to get a full table, if you want to make sure that you and your friends get a full table at this event, you want to go to kayskids.com right now, www.kayskids.com right now, and you want to secure your ticket. You want to do it sooner than later because we have people there are people all over the country that attend this event. There are people that come from, last year we had people from Minnesota. The last time we had an event, we had people come in from Texas and Georgia and Washington State. And this is the best event we do every year. The election night party was amazing. This is even better. We raise lots of money for a great cause. We all dress up festively for Christmas. We play poker. Somebody wins $1,000 cash. Forget about it. It's amazing. www.kayskids, KAYESKIDS.com if you would like to come and play. And like I said, I recommend the VIK table if you can swing it because we have so much fun. We're under the lights, the spotlight. We've got the little RFID card so that it reads what your cards are and it displays them if people are watching at home. So if you want to let your friends see you on TV playing poker with me, it's a great way to do it. I would go to kayskids.com right now and get your tickets before they all sell out. All right. Let's talk a little bit. Like I said, there's a couple of other picks. Another pick that came up yesterday was Doug Collins. And Doug Collins is from Georgia. I really like Doug Collins, but I was always a big Doug Collins fan until, we'll get into that. Doug Collins you may remember him. He was the firebrand before Matt Gaetz was the firebrand. He was the guy from Georgia with the glasses, but he was loud and he was brash. And he sat there during the Mueller investigation and he defended Donald Trump like you wouldn't believe. He was a pit bull, man. I guess he was from Georgia, so I guess he was a bulldog. I guess you call him a bulldog. And Doug Collins sat next to Jerry Nadler, and he was the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, I think it was. And he sat next to Jerry Nadler, Jerry Jabba the Hutt Nadler, and he was on TV, and he was the voice of reason in that entire Mueller investigation. He was the voice of reason coming out of the House of Representatives. He was the only person in that entire body who understood what was at stake, who understood that Donald Trump was innocent, and who really was brave enough to speak the truth. And he did a great job. After that, what happened was there was a Senate opening in Georgia. Johnny Isaacson was a senator from Georgia, and he got sick or something. I think he got sick. I forget I think he got sick or he had surgery or something happened. And Johnny Isaacson he basically quit. And when that Senate opening came up in the state of Georgia, as in many states, what happens is the governor gets to select who fills that seat. And Donald Trump wanted Doug Collins. As you can imagine, the guy goes to bat for you. The guy goes up against the Mueller investigation. The guy sits there and sings your praises. You know he's a fighter. You know he's strong. You're like, that guy belongs in the Senate. In Georgia, forget about it. He would have been great. He would have been amazing. But Governor Brian Kemp, who had problems with Donald Trump at the time, didn't choose Doug Collins to replace Johnny Isakson. He chose Kelly Loeffler. Okay, she's nice. She's decent. She seemed like a nice lady. She seemed like she was qualified. Maybe he had the hots for her. I don't know. But he picked Kelly Loeffler instead of Doug Collins. I think the reason he picked Kelly Loeffler because of Doug Collins is because he knew Donald Trump wanted Doug Collins, and Brian Kemp didn't want to give Donald Trump anything that Donald Trump wanted. So he picked Kelly Loeffler. Well, Doug Collins decided to run anyway. And what happened was Doug Collins and Kelly Loeffler split the vote. So Kelly Loeffler did not get the 50% plus one or the 50% plus whatever. You have to get, in order to win the election in Georgia, you don't just get most of the votes. You have to get at least 50% plus. So she got something like 49, or I guess it was less. I guess she got something like 38 or 39. Doug Collins got like 14%. And then Raphael Warnock got 48 or 47%. So there was a runoff. And Kelly Loeffler had to run against Raphael Warnock. And because they split the vote on the first ballot, it wasn't just hers to win. And there was an all-out push. The Democrats spent so much money. They spent so much. They moved every operative they could into Georgia. And Kelly Loeffler lost. And when that happened, a lot of people blamed Doug Collins. They said, you shouldn't have run. You should have sat out. You shouldn't have run. Kelly Loeffler would have gotten all the votes. She would have gotten the 50 plus one, and she would have been the senator. Is that true? Maybe. But Doug Collins was, I would say, kind of on the outs with the Republicans in Georgia after that. Well, now Donald Trump has revived him. He's made him the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Former Representative Doug Collins of Georgia, a key defender of President-elect Donald Trump during his first impeachment proceedings, has been nominated to be the Secretary for Veterans Affairs. Doug is a veteran himself, says President Trump, who currently serves our nation as a chaplain in the United States Air Force Reserve Command and fought for our country in the Iraq War. We must take care of our brave men and women in uniform, and Doug will be a great advocate for our active duty service members, veterans, and military families to ensure they have the support they need, which they have not been getting under the current administration. Under the current administration, let's just say that Joe Biden's administration is Mike Tyson and Jake Paul are the veterans of the United States of America. Yeah, I'm just saying. That's how the veterans have been treated by the Joe Biden administration, like Mike Tyson treats Jake Paul. And they're going to flip that around with Doug Collins because he's going to go in there and he's going to fight for veterans and he's going to make it right. And that's a solid pick. That's a great pick. That's a pick that nobody should have any problems with. I don't think they will. And there were a couple of other picks, a couple of lawyers for the Department of the Deputy Attorney General, that kind of thing. The pick that we're still waiting for, though, and again, is not a cabinet position. It is it is press secretary. And press secretary, again, not a cabinet position. It doesn't require any kind of Senate approval. It's basically an appointment. The president decides who they want to be press secretary, and that person's press secretary. They don't sit in on cabinet meetings. They're not in charge of any departments. They're not even really in charge of the communications office. There's a whole communications director who's in charge. And of course, the chief of staff, Susan Wiles, will work with the communications director and they'll tell the press secretary basically what to say. But it's still an important job because press secretary is the most, other than the president, and in this case, maybe the vice president and Elon Musk, the press secretary is the most visible representation of the White House. The press secretary is out there every single day arguing with reporters, making fun of Peter Doocy, being made fun of by Peter Doocy. The press secretary is out there every single day or every other day doing press briefings, answering questions. They are the face of the White House. And that's why so many of them are so well known. Sean Spicer was the press secretary for Donald Trump in the first go round, and now he's got his own TV show. You've had Sarah Huckabee Sanders was the press secretary, and now she's governor of Arkansas. Kayleigh McEnany, probably one of the best press secretaries, not just Donald Trump, but any president has ever had. And she now, of course, is on Fox News. Well, that brings us to the Biden administration. And one of the most visible people and one of the most famous people infamous, I should say, that ever came out of the Biden White House was Jen Peppermint Psaki. Jen Peppermint Psaki, who went in there with her fiery red hair and tried to tangle with the media and tried to spin Joe Biden's ridiculousness into something that seemed legitimate. And she made a name for herself. And when she realized, hey, you know what? This gig ain't going to last forever, she dipped out and got a cush job at MSNBC. And she now is the host of her own show. And she said something, I don't know if she was on a podcast or what. She was doing some interview at home with headphones. Listen to what Jen Psaki said about the current situation of news on the internet and news on the and news not just on the internet, but also news online.
One of the things that's changed even since I got involved in politics is just the rise of the percentage of people who get their information off of platforms that have no fact-checking mechanism and no accountability for having disinformation spread, right? Right. And as you know well, and I mean, when I got started in Democratic politics, you know, most of it was like local TV ads. That was what it was about. Obviously, national TV, local print. Those local TV is held to a higher standard of accountability than social media platforms in terms of having accurate information on their platforms. That is crazy. And so it is, how does it change? How are people held to account? Laws have to change.
Did you see that? Here's the problem. Jen Psaki and the rest of the liberal media and the rest of the Democrat Party, they are so upset with the rise of alternative media. Why? Because the Democrats own the media. They own television. They own the radio. They own all of these blogs and these quote unquote newspapers. They've owned the media forever. And now Jen Psaki's coming in here saying, look, there's no fact checking. There's no standard. These people are spreading misinformation, and there's no one out there ever to say, you're spreading misinformation, you need to stop or be punished. And she's saying laws need to change. There's only one law that garners a free speech and the freedom of the press, and that's the First Amendment of the Constitution. In fact, you know what? I have the Constitution here. Let me just double check, because maybe I was reading it wrong. Here we go. Ready? All right, here we go. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, okay, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. So Jen Psaki says that laws must be passed to stop the spread of misinformation, which is basically information that they don't like. Yet the Constitution of the United States, right there in the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights, clearly says Congress shall make no law restricting or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. That is weird. I guess, you know, it's interesting. I guess to be press secretary of the United States of America, you don't actually have to read the Constitution. And by the way, for those of you that are worried, this is not the actual Constitution. That's just a copy. I had a copy made up. The actual one is still at the National Archives. I didn't pull like a Nicolas Cage National Treasure type thing. But Jen Psaki says we need to pass laws to stop the spread of misinformation, because the TV channels, local TV stations, national TV stations, they should have all the power. They're the ones that are held to a higher standard. Are they really held to a higher standard? Because Donald Trump is suing one of those TV stations. He's suing CBS over the 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris that they edited. They're supposed to be the ones that are held to higher standards. Are you telling me that we can edit interviews and make one dumb, horrible answer replace it with a less dumb, horrible answer? Is that what we can do? We can try to make Kamala Harris seem like she knows what she's talking about when clearly she doesn't, with some selective and some creative editing? Is that what you're telling us? She doesn't like that podcasters and live streamers and alternative sources of information gathering are becoming mainstream, and that the mainstream media is becoming not even alternative, irrelevant. In fact, not to toot my own horn, but I'm gonna. We started this week a brand new podcast. And the reason I started a brand new podcast this week is for this specific reason. Because the media is going to get angrier. They're going to get more ridiculous. They're going to get more dishonest. Donald Trump winning the popular vote and the electoral vote, Donald Trump doing the unbelievable and coming back from really the political grave. What Donald Trump did was fantastic. And the rest of the country has his back. And the media now, they're not going to go away. They're going to fight harder. They're going to lie more. They're going to propagandize more. And so I said, you know what we need? We need a podcast that is going to fight back against that propaganda. And I started one, and it's called The 47 Daily. And you can go to www.the47daily.com, and you can download the podcast and you can listen to it. And what's going to happen is, what's going to happen is you will see that this is a podcast that we produce every single day. And every single day we bring you just the news direct from Donald Trump's transition team. When he takes office, we're going to bring you the news direct from the White House. When he's in his first 100 days, we're going to bring you the news direct from his first 100 days and throughout the entire 4-year term. There's going to be no middleman. There's going to be no one editing it or lying about it or propagandizing or changing it or spinning it. It's from the White House to my mouth to your ears. And it's every single morning, so you can get your daily dose and you can learn the truth about how President Trump and his team is working to make America great again. We started that on Monday. It's now Friday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. In 5 days, look, we hit number 20 on the political podcast charts. After only 1 week, we're number 20 on the political podcast charts, which proves that people are hungry for real news. And they don't want laws being passed. They want people to tell them the truth. They want to ingest that truth and make up their own minds. And that's why after 1 week, and thank you for that too, because a lot of you have gone and downloaded the podcast. A lot of you wrote really nice reviews, and reviews really help. You know, one of the ways that we actually go up the charts very quickly is not just with the downloads and the listens, but the number of people that leave 5-star reviews or any reviews, because they know, oh, this is popular. This is something that people are listening to. And look, we're right there. We eked right above our boy Benny Johnson, which is exciting. He'll be mad. And we're right underneath Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. So we're gonna keep going. We're not done. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna go up and up and up and up. We want to go all the way to number 1. So if you like listening to Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, if you enjoy listening to this commentary, please download our second podcast, the 47 Daily Podcast. It's at www.the47daily. And you can get that every single, it's like 20 minutes. It's all news. It just gets you primed and ready for the day so that when you go into the office or when you go into school or when you get in touch with one of those people who's still watching CNN or MSNBC or any of those other ridiculous places, and they start trying to throw these lies at you, like, Matt Gaetz, the DOJ was going to arrest him. You can say, no, that's actually not true. Here's the actual truth. I heard about it on the 47 Daily with Mark Kaye. One more thing before we wrap up, there's one more story I have to share with you because it's a follow-up on a story that we did a few weeks ago. You may remember Peanut the squirrel, who was ripped from his owner's arms. Mark Longo. Mark Longo made Peanut the squirrel an internet celebrity, put little hats on him, fed him waffles. Everybody on Instagram loved him. He was a TikTok star, lived with a raccoon named named Fred. And what happened was in New York, they ripped him out of it. Somebody called in and complained. And so they went in and it was a gross overstatement of government use and agencies, but they went in and they ripped Peanut and Fred away from his owners. They took him downtown. And in the process, I guess Peanut nibbled at the finger of one of the feds. So they put him down. They killed him. And this was, I think, one of the final nails in Kamala Harris's coffin. And this really led people to realize, people that maybe weren't even paying attention to Donald Trump's election and his campaign, people that weren't even really paying attention to what was at stake here. I think that a lot of people saw the Peanut the squirrel story and they realized they don't like big government at all. They want the opposite. And if the Democrats run New York, if the Democrats killed Peanut and Fred, then they don't want Democrats in office. And that led to Donald Trump's massive victory. Well, Neil Gorsuch was at an event and I guess it looks like he's got a new book. He's overruled. He's pimping his new book. And Neil Gorsuch mentioned Peanut the squirrel in his speech about government overreach. I don't have a clip of the speech, but there's a story in the New York Post about it. SCOTUS Justice Neil Gorsuch shouts out, I think it should say, Peanut the squirrel in speech about government overreach. The legacy of Peanut the squirrel continues on all the way to the country's highest court. Justice Neil Gorsuch gave a shout out to the furry social media star seized and euthanized by New York State officials in his keynote speech at the Federalist Society's annual dinner on Thursday. The Supreme Court justice name dropped the late domesticated squirrel as an example of government overreach in everyday Americans' lives, according to The Hill. I've just seen too many cases like that, he said. You have just the other day. Some of you might have seen one in the newspaper, if the newspapers are to be believed. Gorsuch told the crowd. Yes, I'm speaking of Peanut the squirrel, he added, to laughter and applause from the outlet. The internet-famous Peanut and his adopted brother, Fred the raccoon, were ripped from their upstate New York home by state agents on October 30th, euthanized and decapitated to test for rabies, which neither of them had. This is now being quoted by Supreme Court justices. This case of government overreach. This is the power of the internet. This squirrel was an internet star who became an internet meme who changed the course of an election and is now being talked about at the Supreme Court level as government overreach. This is why Jen Psaki thinks that she wants laws passed against alternative broadcasting and Twitter and YouTube and Rumble. She wants laws passed so that the media, the news media, the television and the radio can continue to dominate the conversation and push out whatever they want. More people knew about Peanut the squirrel from Twitter, from Instagram, from TikTok than they did about anything else going on NBC, MSNBC, or CNN. One of the reasons why they're selling MSNBC for pennies on the dollar and they're firing hundreds of people at CNN. Oh, I wonder if Jen Psaki's worried about her job. I wonder if that's it. I wonder if she's one of the people. I wonder if she's like, oh my God, they're going to auction off MSNBC. What am I going to do now? Where am I going to go? I'm going to, and it's interesting to me because this is going to change. Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk, Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, what they're doing is, as we heard, they're going to take a chainsaw to government inefficiency. They're going to take a chainsaw to big government. They're going to do to big government what Mike Tyson did to Jake Paul. And I, for one, am here for it. Listen, thanks so much for joining me today. This was fantastic. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to set your notifications because we pump out a lot of content. It's not just the daily live stream here on YouTube and Rumble. It's not just the podcast at noon on Spotify and on iTunes. We also have videos and shorts and all kinds of information coming at you left, right, and center. Throughout the weekend, you're going to get more updates from me. And the only way you're going to see them first is if you subscribe to the channel and you set the notification, set that bell, hit the ding-a-ling right now, because we are just getting warmed up. You see how they're attacking Donald Trump just days after he won one of the most consequential mandates in the history of our country. You see how the second George Washington is already being attacked, and he hasn't even started his second term yet. They're going to keep coming at us, the media, the left, and many people on the right. And we've got to stick together. We've got to stay informed. We've got to stay enlightened and inspired. And we've got to stay entertained. That's my job. That's what I'm going to do every single day. So subscribe, set your notifications, and keep coming back. Because together, you and me and Peanut the squirrel and Kaye it's all over the fruited plain will save the republic. Don't forget, get your poker tickets. Go to kayskids.com. Join me December the 5th, 2024 for the Ho Ho Hold'em charity poker tournament. kayskids.com.